a helpful list for reintroducing activities is to first visualize what you're going to do and then expect it to go well and then do the activity just a little bit, however much feels good, with smiles, joy, and gratitude. And then if sensations arise, respond with the calmness, compassion, and neutrality.
If you're someone who's gone from a life where you felt like you could pretty much do it all to now feeling like getting off the couch is pretty much a summit attempt, this conversation is for you. Right now, we are going to talk about specifics for things like what to do if your mornings feel the hardest, or why addressing fear isn't actually the answer for everyone, and how to know how and when to expand activity in a way that doesn't lay you out completely with symptoms. If you're new here, I'm Raelan Agle, and this channel shares the lived wisdom and science backed strategies to help your brain and nervous system recognize safety so you can get your life back from ME/CFS, long COVID, and other chronic syndromes. And today I am thrilled to welcome Alisha Braswell, who is joining us from North Carolina. Alisha went from being a runner, a hiker, and a farmer with two manual labor jobs to a year and a half on the couch. She went from being someone who most considered to be one of the healthiest people that they knew to experiencing relentless symptoms despite nothing structural showing up on her tests. But then, thankfully, she found her path past this, and now she's a coach supporting so many others on that same path. This discussion is going to be grounding, compassionate, and refreshingly actionable. So if you're craving practical, gentle steps to rebuild trust with your body, this interview is for you. So please join me in welcoming Alisha Braswell to the Raelan Agle podcast. But first, I have a favor to ask you, and that might seem bold if we've only just met, but something tells me that you and I have been sharing space for a while now. If you haven't already subscribed, I ask you to consider doing so. Across the board, hosts like me have been experiencing a decrease in subscribers, which makes it more challenging to keep all of this work sustainable. Subscribing is the best way that you can support the work that I do here. It helps me support my team that works very hard behind the scenes. It helps ensure that I can get you the best possible guests, and also ensures that you always know when a new episode is released so you don't miss a thing. So if you haven't already, it would help so much if you could tap that subscribe button and make us official. And if you change your mind, you can always unsubscribe. Thank you and enjoy this episode. Alisha, so great to have you here. Thanks for being
Hello.
with us.
Thank you so much for having me back. I'm excited
Yeah,
to be
so
here.
I'm so excited to have you back. It's like visiting with a friend. I was saying before we hit record how nice it is to have returning guests like yourself. Get to know people and see how they're doing and what's changed. And everyone always has new insights, especially people like yourself who are working with others. You know, we're learning all of us as we go. So, yeah, really great. I'm excited to jump into all of this. So, I was just thinking of some things since the last time we spoke, and I'll link your first interview for people who would like to hear more about your journey in detail. But I remember you described yourself as someone who was very healthy and active before COVID, like running and hiking and farming and working too, like manual jobs, physical jobs. So, looking back, or, when you think about it, what was that like for you, both mentally and physically, to go from that lifestyle to being feeling so unwell for so long? Because so many people I talk to are like yourself, so active, and then it's like the brakes are put on. So what was that like for you?
Yes, that was very hard. It was a very challenging learning journey. And definitely at first, once I started to experience fatigue and couldn't do as much as I used to be able to do, at first I pushed through the fatigue. So there was a lot of fighting for probably a whole year,
Yeah.
which that first year, I experienced a lot of heart palpitations and anxiety and fatigue. Those were the three main symptoms for the first year of my journey. And I really pushed through for a whole year because I did not want
Wow.
to rest. But then I got COVID again, and that really put me on the couch. There was no choice. I had
Yeah.
extreme fatigue and a lot of other symptoms. And so, yes, there was no choice anymore. And it crushed my ego because I wasn't anything that I used to
Yeah.
be. I wasn't a yoga instructor or runner, hiker, just me on the couch. So there was a lot of lessons with that and a lot of emotions to work through there.
Yeah. Did you find, because I know I don't think I was as healthy or as active as you, but a lot of my identity was tied up in all of that. And I really struggled with a lot of strong emotions, anger and frustration about, like, I took such good care of myself, I thought. And it seemed like other people who didn't take anywhere nearly as good care of themselves were living their lives and feeling fine. And that the
Hmm.
injustice of it was really hard. So did you feel some of that when you were going through this?
Oh, yes, definitely. A lot of rage
Yeah.
and anger and confusion,
Yeah.
and a lot of anger at myself because it was very confusing. How could I have done all of the
Mhm.
correct things to be healthy and strong and then gotten that sick? So there was a lot of self anger to deal with and a lot of emotions. Yes.
Yeah. And did you, I don't know how you felt, but I also had guilt over the anger and the rage
Hmm.
because I thought, well, I can't, because I really was sometimes looking at people thinking, this is not fair. How do you get to do this? And then I think, oh, I shouldn't think that. Like, that's not a good thing to think. And then I try and push that down. It's just a bit of a tug of war, trying to come to terms with all of it.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And I previously, before I got sick, I had read Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life, and it's a very helpful book, but it's all
Hmm.
about positive affirmations. And so for the first about year, I was, saying all these positive affirmations, and then I would be so mad that they weren't working. And so then that also created guilt and shame around the negative thoughts, for sure. And so that is a big part of my journey of healing was beginning to allow myself to feel all of those feelings.
Yeah. And it's another adjustment that I love that you pointed out how you pushed through because that's what you'd always done. And then you got to a point where there was no pushing through. And I know many of us leading up to this, that was just our approach to life. It was not really listening to our body, perhaps not reflecting on the messages too much, despite thinking of ourselves as quite healthy people. And then, so what was that like to face this wall of, wow, I can't push through this? Like, what now?
Yes. And I do believe that that wall that came and forced me to rest, pushed up maybe a lot of the emotions.
Yeah.
Um, and so it was a lot of working through emotions, and acceptance and surrender were very big lessons through that journey. And yeah, I mean, acceptance and surrender came in small steps throughout each day because there was still so much searching, especially in the first 2 years of doctors and fixing and,
Mm.
constantly trying to figure it out to fix it to get back to my old life. But then slowly surrender and acceptance started to creep in. And so, those two lessons have really stayed with me through, healing. And now I also rest and have a much more balanced lifestyle than I did before. I still love to exercise and I'm active, and I also listen to my body throughout the whole day. And so listening to my own needs, is a big lesson that came through that journey also.
Yeah. So that's a pretty big hint, I think, right there, or insight about your journey. But I'm wondering, looking at it now, what's different between how you approached your life before all these symptoms versus how you approach it now? Because on the surface, I suspect both look very healthy and great on paper. So what's different in how you approach things
Hmm.
today?
Yes. I would say two main differences are the balance and self love and self acceptance. Through
Mm.
being sick, there was a point where I realized I needed to learn to love myself in that moment on the couch and love myself however I was feeling. If I was feeling awful, couldn't do anything, I still showed myself love. And that was, a big shift because I used to only feel lovable when I did things and accomplished things. So
Mhm.
learning to love my and accept myself when I was doing nothing all day was a very big shift and learning process. And so that has really, slowly grew that practice, and it's still a practice now. But I'm much more able to love myself through, ups and downs, no matter what I'm doing. And that in itself creates a different, that helps to create the balance because if there's a day I need rest, I know it's okay to rest versus feeling that guilt that I need to do something in order to prove myself to someone.
Yeah. Rest has been a big one for me to accept in my life, and I'm very much closer there now, that to the point where I get excited about rest. Like it's this gift that I give myself, and
Mhm.
I tell myself like rest is productive and how incredible that I get to just lay here and do nothing and close my eyes or read a book, and it's this beautiful thing. But it took me a long time, even coming out of CFS with everything I'd learned. Those
Mhm.
old patterns are really wired and strong of like must be productive,
Mhm.
resting is wasted time, or if I need to rest, something's wrong with me, push through. Like, no,
Mhm.
my body's sending me a message. Yeah. But
Yes, I think, for me at least, when I started to heal and I started to be able to do things again, I really needed to go slow. So there was times I could do things and then still needed that rest, like from the actual fatigue and that balance of introducing activities. Still having that lingering fatigue for me forced me to rest in between activities. And I feel that that year really kind of instilled that rest was okay. Although now I don't rest from like chronic fatigue, I just rest because it's time to rest. But
yeah.
what you said also, that rest is actually nourishment, and there is, you know, nourishment in rest, and that shift in belief really helps. And also for me, when I rest and like, the next day, or even if it's just, rest can mean a lot of different things. I think rest can sound scary, like, oh, I don't want to lay around all day. And sometimes I need those kinds of rest days, but, even just stopping for 5 minutes and checking in with my breath, I think that's rest throughout my day versus nonstop going. So, if I stop for 5 minutes to just breathe, I feel fantastic after. So I think that reward of stopping and noticing and continuing to feel nourished helps, to know that rest is wonderful.
Yeah. And rest can come even in activity or a form of it, I find, in how
Mhm.
you approach it. Because many of us have this mentality of always being in a rush, like everything needs to happen quickly. And if it's not, then it's not productive and we're slacking or whatever. Like I interviewed the amazing woman, Christy Yuppie, and she said if she was in the grocery store and no one could see her, if no one else was in that aisle, she would run from one end of the aisle to the other because that was the most efficient way to get through the grocery store. She's like, why would I walk when I can run?
Uh-huh.
So, and although I've never done that, I'm like, that's wow, that's bananas. But then I see myself in so many activities throughout my day, and I've had to just be like, it's okay to go slow, slow down. Just
Mhm.
because trying to go at that pace all of the time is also incredibly draining. And you
Mhm.
need less rest, I find, if you can just be more,
Mhm.
okay, let's just chill. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's why the little mindful moments throughout the day of just stopping and pausing are very helpful.
Yeah. So as you went through your journey, there's so many different tools out there you can use, so many practices or habits. So, which ones for you? What did that look like as you worked through your recovery past these chronic symptoms? What ones made the biggest difference for you?
Yes, I'd love to share. So I just want to tell a few minutes of my story to lead into my answer. Just saying that, when I got sick with COVID, then I had long COVID for 3 years. And for a year and a half of that, I was couch bound and, had over 15 symptoms. And you can always watch my story, but I did all of the things of going to the doctor and the functional medicine doctor, testing. Nothing was structurally wrong. And so, I went through almost 2 years of supplements and killing things and detox and lots of things. And
Yeah.
so for me, my turning point of healing was learning about TMS, mind body work, and neuroplastic symptoms. And so I just wanted to say that part because, you know, so for creating feelings of safety is what I'd, like to share today. And the first step in that is, figuring out if the symptoms you're experiencing are TMS or neuroplastic symptoms, because that's specifically how I healed. And, through that, you go to the doctor first to make sure that nothing is structurally wrong. And then there's lots of tests out there. I have a TMS questionnaire on my website, and I also have a helpful resources page with lots of links of science and information about it. So that being said, neuroplastic symptoms are completely real, and everything I felt was completely real. But the shift was knowing that actually my body is not broken and that I was safe. So first, just that knowledge created calmness. And so then I learned more tools to calm my nervous system. And by calming my nervous system, that's how all of the sensations and symptoms were able to fade. So, like I said, the first step in that is just knowing that there was actually nothing wrong with my body and I was safe with the sensations. So, one tool for helping with that is somatic tracking. And so I used Rebecca Tolan's somatic tracking meditation multiple times a day for many months. And that was extremely helpful to me. So Rebecca Tolan has a very calming voice, and
She
you know
does.
she she leads you to just notice your body first, and then bring in calmness, and then you bring attention to the sensations that are uncomfortable, and that helps you to just bring calmness to know that you're safe with those sensations. So for me, I had a lot of GI issues and I had a very hard time eating. So I felt awful after every meal. And that was one of my hardest times of the day. And so that's just one example of I would eat and then feel very, very bad. And I would do the somatic tracking, and the somatic tracking brought calmness to my mind and body and started to teach me that I was safe with how I was feeling. Um, so the somatic tracking is the first thing, and I can keep going, but I'll see if you have questions.
Yeah, I'm thinking for people that might be new or unfamiliar with the term somatic tracking, or maybe they're sharing this in a space with people that they think this will be helpful, and some people there might not be familiar with it. If you could just explain briefly what somatic tracking actually is, what the purpose of it is, how you do it, and why you do it.
Sure. So it's really bringing your awareness into your body and into the sensations that you're feeling. So, we're often in our minds and thoughts and not even aware of how our body's feeling. But somatic tracking, the point of it is to really go within, feel the sensations. You can put words to it or it can be without words, just really noticing how the sensations feel in your body. And this is also, outcome independent. So we're not trying to fix anything. We're not trying to change anything. We're just really bringing awareness and calmness to how we're feeling in our body. And so through that, we're teaching our brain that it's safe to feel the sensations that we're feeling in our body. So it's bringing awareness and calmness to how you're feeling in your body.
And it's such a big one and powerful one because, as I know I don't need to tell you or many of our listeners, but so many things in life, our brain starts to link with danger. So you see, like, oh, I eat and now I have all these symptoms, or I
Hmm.
spend, too much time on my computer or whatever it might be. And the understandable reaction is to be like, oh, and now I have all these symptoms. And then you start to freak out, and there can be all these scary thoughts around that. So it's just a way of diffusing that because those reactions to those symptoms, those strong fearful frustration, whatever it might be, can reinforce those danger patterns, and then the symptoms stick around or potentially even get worse. So yeah, I appreciate you explaining that.
Yes, and it also helps, like what you just said, that our mind can go quite off with the fear thoughts. The somatic tracking also just helps to slow your thoughts.
Yeah. So what other tools and practices were the most impactful for you?
Yes. So also guided meditations, calming guided meditations were all helpful just to, bring calmness and really listen to someone else's voice rather than my own thoughts for a little while. And calming Hertz music was also very helpful. Sometimes I would lay down and just have the calming Hertz on. But also sometimes I'd do a calming task with the calming Hertz frequencies. And smiling was another one. I began to really make myself smile. And so, actually physically making yourself smile actually does release, endorphins and dopamine and serotonin in your body that makes you feel happy and relaxed. And so I will say that was a big one for me. I had been sick for a few years and realized that I had not smiled in quite a long time. So I, first began to make myself smile, and it does make a difference, even if it feels silly. And then, over time, there was actually reasons to smile. So smiling along with sitting up straight, just starting to like make my posture straight and up, smiling, and those actual physical movements. Still they send signals to your brain that everything's okay. So I still use smiling if I'm, driving somewhere and I'm all serious and thinking about something that's frustrating in life. I just stop and smile really big, and it always shifts my energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, quoting Christy forever in this interview, but I'm thinking something else she said. She's like, when I stub my toe, I make myself laugh. And it
Mm,
makes the pain less. Like it's hard, but she's like, and at first I'm just faking the laugh, but it's incredible the impact that has, the messages it sends to our brain and our nervous system about what's going on. It's little
mhm,
things, isn't it? They
mhm.
sound too simple, but they really can make a massive difference. Yeah.
Yes, it does. And, along with the joy piece, also engaging in something that's joyful or fun, or even just something that's simply engaging that has nothing to do with health is
Hmm.
extremely helpful. And I use
Yeah.
that, a lot through my journey. I began to just, buy books that I thought were interesting, listen to podcasts that were funny. I began to take a Reiki class, and I got into learning about that and just really engaging in tasks that bring your full attention, and joy and calmness teaches your brain that you're safe.
So, were there these are excellent tools, by the way. I appreciate you sharing them. Did you find, or with the people that you work with, because some people find that these tools go a really long way and they are massive and that's all they need, but other people find that gets them part of the way. But then there's some other work that they need to do, maybe some deeper things or some patterns that they're, have been carrying since childhood. So, was that the case for you? And if so, or with the people that you work with, how do you address that?
Sure, that's a good question. So, two other tools are the self compassion and self love,
Hmm.
and then letting go of pressure on yourself and letting go of pressure of time to heal. And so, you can have all these tools of meditation and, somatic tracking, and you're just doing them all the time to make yourself heal. And that, is not super helpful if you still have that pressure on yourself. So,
Yeah.
you know, it seems to be common that people that are perfectionist end up on these journeys. And so I was definitely a perfectionist, and I guess I still am. I still have perfectionist qualities. They didn't all leave, but learning to let go of the pressure on myself um, was a big part. So letting go of the pressure to heal and trusting that it would happen in its own time. So I still had that trust that
Mm.
I would heal. I just let go of the pressure there, which I know is a challenge. But in that, like a daily practice of letting go of pressure on yourself, if you are moving throughout your day and you realize you're rushing or you realize you're tense, and you can stop and just ask yourself, like, why am I pushing myself this hard? And, is that necessary? So those little moments of letting go of pressure on yourself all add up. And then bringing in that self compassion and love is also a big piece
Yeah.
because, loving yourself and showing yourself self-compassion even when you're not perfect, helps to heal the need for the perfectionist side. And so
Yeah.
those are two big pieces to bring into the practices.
Yeah. Which really does get at a lot of the core stuff that's been driving us for much of our life. Yeah.
Yes. And so then, also I will say, emotional work was part of it. I did again, it has to do with, well, so I started doing journaling and emotional work a lot while I was very sick. And that was very helpful, but I didn't
Mm.
find healing just from that. So then, I discovered the TMS mind body work and neuroplastic symptoms, and then had that shift that I wasn't broken. And then, along with the self love and compassion, letting go of pressure, and learning to allow that emotional work in a much softer way made a big difference. And so, I still did emotion work, journal writing, expressive writing, allowing a lot of emotions to come up and out, but I really allowed just whatever was coming up to come up versus forcing it. And then, through that, through allowing these emotions, again, bringing in that compassion and the somatic tracking, to emotions, knowing that they're all safe, it's safe to feel these sensations. Teaching myself that all of that was safe was also a big part of the journey.
I'm curious because you've mentioned fear, talking about safety, and it's something that I talk about a lot on this channel because with neuroplastic symptoms, we're looking at our threat assessment systems, and we know that it's danger alarms and communication that's happening. So naturally, we see fear at the core of that, and how we respond to symptoms is very important. Trying to eliminate that fear. And for most people, this resonates and they can just zero in on that. And that is very helpful. But I do come across some people that say the fear component just doesn't resonate for me. I don't feel fearful. I'm not even scared of my symptoms. I don't feel like there's a lot of fear going on here. So, do you encounter that? And if so, like, what do you see that is happening there? Or how do you guide people in those cases?
Yes, that's interesting. And so, neuroplastic symptoms can, it's mostly from fear, but it can also be, you know, like the symptom is showing up to mask an emotion that
Mm.
is not being expressed. So that's just the first thought that comes to mind. It doesn't mean that that's always the answer. And
Yeah.
so, just talking to your symptoms can help sometimes to say, like, what are you here to teach me? And doing a little bit more work with expressive writing and journaling just to, try that and see if there is something deeper that is emotion that's not fear. So the neuroplastic symptom can be from, hiding sadness or grief or shame. So that is a possibility. And then also, you know, neuroplastic symptoms can show up, um, like, for an example, they could come, every morning of the day. And that
Mm.
usually is pretty telling that it's a neuroplastic symptom, because if there was something wrong, it likely would happen throughout the whole day. So
Yeah.
in that case, we, try to teach our brain that we're safe. So I am using the word safe in that
Mhm.
moment, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're scared every morning, because a neural pathway could have just formed and our brains made association with the morning time and that symptom. So
Yeah.
that's not exactly fear. It's just a neural pathway that has been formed, that we just need to, simply create a new neural pathway for the morning time in that example.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent explanation, and I think we use the word fear a lot, but it can mean many things, and ultimately, it's coming down to fear in the nervous system, let's say, or a
Mhm.
question of fear, is this safe? But how you experience that in your conscious awareness could be a whole variety of things.
Mhm.
Everything you just said, from the pathways in the brain to emotions that are causing it, or things in your life out of alignment that don't necessarily register for you as fear.
Mhm.
But yeah, can be something that your system is saying, alarm, something's wrong here. But
Mhm.
yeah, I feel for the people that are like, okay, this all makes sense, but yet it doesn't match my experience. So does
Mhm.
this apply to me? And if so, how do I navigate this? Yeah.
Yes. And when it is that type of situation where it's really a learned neural pathway, you know, for a time throughout the day, you know, using different tools to shift your attention or mindset during that time of the day, is very helpful. So there's all these tools that you can use, but they don't all fit every person or every situation. And one good thing to ask yourself is, how can I return to calmness or safety in this moment? So,
Yeah.
if you're not consciously feeling fear, you can still ask, how do I return to feelings of calmness? Because I don't know, I just would guess that if you're feeling an uncomfortable situation, shifting to engaging in a fun task, for example, might be the answer to that question in that moment.
Yeah. And that really resonates for me. I love these interviews. It's always like a little bit of therapy for me and helps me unpack my own journey a little bit more. But with my ME/CFS, I woke up and I almost always felt the worst first thing in the morning. And I'd wake up in the morning and I'd have this dread for the day ahead. Understandably, because I was alone and I was going to be on the couch or in bed and having all these horrible symptoms and all this time to just think about how I couldn't work or socialize or do anything that I liked. And you just start spiraling. But in the moment, I don't think I even connected that I was having those feelings or thoughts about the day. It was just habit. It was a pathway in the brain. I wake up, dread for the day. I feel worse, reinforcing that I had reason for dread. And yeah, it never occurred to me that I could do any kind of practice or intervention in that moment that could lighten that and shift it over time. I just felt
Hmm.
like this is how it is. This is how I'm wired. I feel bad in the morning and there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, that's
Um,
a good example. And it is hard to see, until you learn about it. It's,
yeah.
that is one, helpful thing about coaching or listening to videos to help to change your thought process. And, we often don't see things like that from, we kind of need an outside person sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, that would have been so if I could put you in a time machine and send you back to me, that would be so incredible. But okay. So I'm thinking as well, because these are everything you're saying resonates with all the people I interview and all the people that recover and what the other experts out there are saying and other coaches and so forth. So I just love that we're, seeing so many of the same things working for people. I'm wondering though, because a lot of the things we're talking about are easier, not easy, but easier to use when your symptoms aren't so intense, when they're just a little bit mild or moderate. But what would you say for someone who's currently in the middle of really intense symptoms? Maybe they're bedbound or couchbound, like you were at some times. So what would you say to them? And is there a different approach in those moments
Hmm.
for people?
Yes, it can definitely feel very overwhelming in those moments. And first, I will just say that, all of these tools do help when you're feeling that awful. And I did feel like completely awful all day long, every day for about a year and a half, where I couldn't even walk up the stairs to go take a shower. And in those days of not being able to do anything, I began these practices. But we want to, go very softly and slowly begin to trust. It is a process, and there's nothing wrong with you if you do a meditation and you don't feel better after. We want to remember
Yeah.
that everyone's, in different parts of their journey. So, again, remembering it's a process and slowly starting to trust and really beginning to listen to what makes you feel the best. So, if just listening to the calming hertz music helps to bring a little bit of calmness in the day, that still is making a difference, even though it's a small difference. Um, so, noticing any very small shifts of calmness and knowing that all of those very small shifts really do help. So, if the one thing you do that day is smiling like 5 times a day, that still made some shift in that day. So, again, remembering it's a process and wherever you're at is okay. And there's no perfect answer to which tools to use, and really asking which ones make you feel the most calm and safe
Yeah.
is a very helpful question to continue to ask.
Yeah, I love the trusting yourself and the individual approach and lots of tools out there. And some of them really might not feel like a good fit for you. And if they don't, then they're probably not. Or there are some that you think, okay, I like how this person is doing it, but it feels like I need to do it a little bit differently. Then that's the way to do it because you know
Hmm.
you and you know your body. And if it feels like some horrible chore or something that stresses you out, chances are, very big chance, that, yeah, this is not the right approach. But understandably, people are desperate and they think I got to force this like it worked for that person, so let's do the thing over and over even though it makes me miserable. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I'd love to talk for a minute about something that comes up all the time in the comments and the people that I talk to, which is about expanding activity. So it'd be great to hear a bit about how you approach this on your journey and then how you now coach others through this, because it's a challenging thing to figure out. Because at some point, you need to start resuming some level of normal activities and expanding things, but can be very confusing to figure out how much and when. So, what's your approach to all of that?
Sure. I love talking about this, and I just wrote my last newsletter on this. So, um,
Perfect.
I love talking about it because, so for me, again, I was on the couch for a long time,
Mm,
and it was very scary to me to reintroduce activities.
yeah.
And I went very slow. And again, I really listened to myself. I listened to a lot of recovery stories while I was, laying down. And, they range from, it took me years to one day I just got up and knew I was fine.
Yeah,
And to me,
exactly.
yes.
It's so confusing. Like I read a book and then I put down the book and I chopped down a tree or I ran up a mountain and then someone else is like, "Well, I started about thinking about going for a walk and then from there I put my shoes on and then the next week after that I opened the door but I didn't go out." And you're like,
Yes. Yes. And
yeah.
so for me, I really took those stories of the miraculous healing. I just took them
Mm,
as hope that it was possible. So I knew that that's not what was going to happen for me, because I
yeah.
needed to go slow. I needed to I just needed to go slow to feel safe. And so those
Mm,
miraculous stories really just gave me hope. Like, if it's possible to do that, then it's
yeah.
possible for me to walk 10 feet. So, for a while, for me, I started to reintroduce one thing per week. And
Mm,
again, there's no perfect for anyone, but this just gave me like a small goal, and I did whatever felt okay to introduce that week. So for me, I started to walk, which took a long time. I literally just walked outside of my door at first, and also throughout this whole process, I gave myself a lot of compassion for
Mm.
everything that I could do. And I will back up for a minute. A helpful list for reintroducing activities that I like to teach my clients is to first visualize what you're going to do and then expect it to go well and then do the activity just a little bit, however much feels good, with smiles, joy, and gratitude. And then if sensations arise, respond with the calmness, compassion, and neutrality. So I
I
did use
love
this
that.
list.
I love that so much. That is such a great approach and such a great formula.
Yes, yes, I love sharing that list. And I really did use that throughout reintroducing activities. So I would pick what I was going to do, expect it to go well, and do a very small amount for
Yeah.
me. So that small amount can be however much feels good to the person. And again, smiled a lot, was very grateful for everything I could do, and then responded with a lot of compassion and calmness if sensations arose. So, with neuroplastic symptoms and reintroducing activities, if you do an activity and do experience strong sensations, how to break that loop is by responding with that calmness, because then that teaches your brain that it is okay that you did that activity, even though there were sensations.
I it's so important. It's such a challenging thing to navigate, and I love that everyone comes at it a little bit differently, and everyone explains it a little bit differently. So I ask this question of as many people as possible, so that people listening, it's like one person will say it, be like, "There we go, that clicks. That sounds like what I want to do.
Hmm.
I get it now." Yeah,
Yes, and I'll just say two more silly stories for that. And one thing, when I really was doing no movement, I started to lay down and put on music, and I would put my hands and feet up in the air and dance. So I was like laying down dancing. And the first time I did
I
it, I
love
was
it.
just like laughing and I felt so silly, but I started to sweat and I had not sweated in over 2 years.
Wow.
So it was great. I was laying down, I was still introducing movement and I had fun. And every time you do something like that, it again proves like, oh, if I could dance lying down
Yeah,
and sweat, then I could probably practice yoga.
yeah.
So, yes, all those little reinforcements make a big difference.
I love that too, because I think that's one of the things that us that have gone through this in our community are uniquely positioned to appreciate that moment of like, I'm sweating for the
Yes.
first time in 2 years. Oh my goodness. I want to shout it from the rooftops. This is
Yes.
incredible.
Yes.
I've done something to the point where I worked up a sweat. This is such
Hmm.
an achievement. I've never been so happy to be sweaty.
Yes, it was great.
Yeah. I think and when I first started my channel, I shared a lot about how I started bringing in activity. And I wish I had the language and the understanding then because I don't think I explained it well. But I used to work out a lot and run and I missed it. So I started with like a gradually expanding sort of like movement program, which can sound a lot like graded exercise therapy, which I know can go terribly wrong and is not for everybody and not necessary. But for me, I see it now because I started, as I've said many times, if you've been watching, you're like, yes, we know, Raylan, 1 minute a day for the first week or every second day. And then the next, it's just like 1 minute of just like arm circles or, nothing intense. And then the next week, I'd up it to 2 minutes. And for me, I see now, because every time I had tried that, it was so hard for me to think that small. And I always wanted to do more. And
Hmm.
like you, I see that my nervous system needed me to expand things slowly. I wasn't going to go out and chop a tree or run up a mountain. I needed to just do a little bit. So for me, that worked really well because it took the pressure off. I'm like, all I'm doing is 1 minute today. That's all I
Hmm.
have to do. I know it's ridiculously little and feels like it couldn't possibly help anything, but it put like a safety guard on it. Now, next week, okay, all I'm doing is 2 minutes. So it's just, if working out isn't something you enjoy and, then that's not going to be the path for you, like whatever it might be. And I love that you said, like, try something new, because I found with that more narrow approach, then when I shifted to a different activity, symptoms came on because I'd only created
Mm.
safety around exercise type movements, not
Mhm.
necessarily like the grocery store or climbing a hill or whatever it might be, a loud, noisy social situation. So I
Mhm.
think that's a really great approach to just like, let's try something little new every week and
Mhm.
slowly expose ourselves to the world again.
Yes. Yes, that
Yeah.
um I just have two thoughts from that. One is that the reintroducing activities checklist that I said is for all activities, like going to the grocery
Okay.
store, seeing a person again,
Yeah.
anything that creates sensations. And also, it sounds like for you doing 1 minute, then 2 minutes took took the pressure off. So,
Yeah.
that's why we, want to listen to our own needs. And like if doing 5 minutes makes you like feel pressure, then that's not
Yeah.
helpful. So just ask yourself, how long can I do this? I'll just do it till I don't,
Yeah.
letting go of that pressure is a big piece.
Yeah, and I don't think that the counting of the minutes necessarily on its own makes a lot of sense and is helpful, but in the context of which I used it, it created a
Hmm.
lot of safety for me. But
Hmm.
yeah, for the people I interview, most people don't find like a fixating too much on the numbers is it's just more about yeah,
Hmm.
joy and safety and what feels good in the moment.
Hmm. Yeah, but that is a good
Yeah.
example that that's what made you feel safe.
Yeah. Yeah. Was there a second story? I don't want to cut you off, or did we cover them both? I've lost track.
That I did. Yes, I'm done.
Okay. I'm bad at that. My brain goes off in
Oh,
another
are you talking
direction.
about range? Sorry. I guess the second story wasn't as funny as the first one, but I just also wanted to share that, when I started to walk again, I also started to garden again, which, the garden is like 20 feet outside of our house, and I had not even
Mhm.
walked to the garden in 2 years. So for me, I just started
Wow.
with walking into the garden, and I was so grateful that I was standing in the garden. And then
Yeah.
I would, literally just go back and put my hands in the dirt and be so grateful that I was, touching the earth again. And, through that and through introducing walking, there was many times I just started to cry because it was just amazing that I
Yeah.
could do those things again. So again, honoring emotions that come up throughout is helpful.
Yeah. So I don't know if this is something, it's a sort of a big question, but always trying to distill things into something simple for people listening, for people that are in the thick of this, what are some of the most important things that you'd want them to know about this journey?
Yes, I think the first thing I will say is letting go of the pressure.
Yeah.
And, with letting go of pressure, a big piece of healing through this work is letting go of fixing and figuring out. And so, that's what we're all here doing is figuring out and fixing. But just practice taking a break from that because just taking a break from fixing yourself and anything that's wrong going, of course we want it all to go away, but just for 2 hours, try just watching a movie and taking a break. I just think that like breaks and letting go of the pressure of fixing, is really calming. um, and again, remembering that there's all these tools, there's so much information out there, and just remembering to check in what feels good to you. Does, if you listen to a story and there's advice and it makes you feel anxious, that advice probably just isn't for you and it's for someone else. But if, advice or knowledge makes you feel calm and safe, then go with those things.
I know you have a lot that's available for people for resources and that you support people going through this. So what do you have available? Where can people find that? What do you offer for people to work with them who are going through these conditions?
Yeah, of course. So I have an online business. I'm a mind body coach, and the easiest way to find me is Googling Alisha Braswell. But I'm also on Facebook at Vibrant Energy Healing, and you can follow me. And I post tips and helpful quotes, and so that's nice. But Also on my website, I have a helpful resources page that has lots of links to TMS, neuroplastic symptom resources. I also have a guided meditations page that you could try. A
Oh, I
somatic
love it.
tracking is on there if you'd like to try it, and other just calming meditations. And then I have a 30-minute free discovery call if you want to see if we're a right fit to work together or just ask questions in that 30 minutes. And then I offer hour coaching sessions. And, my clients range from working with me for months or just, once or twice to ask some questions. And so there's a wide range, of clients. And I provide lots of support and guidance and a lot of information on the TMS work. And then I also provide support for emotional work through this journey. And yeah, that's it. I love coaching and offering guidance and support through this work.
Yeah, I mean, you're clearly very knowledgeable on all of this, which is amazing. You have your own personal experience since so you get it. Your compassion for people in this process is clear in the way that you speak. And you also have a very calm, soothing voice. So I think you are a perfect person to be providing these meditations and somatic tracking exercises. So I'm very excited that you have those available for people. I was thinking, ooh, I might have to check some of those out. I feel like I could listen to your voice all day. I feel relaxed just having spoken with you. So, anyways,
Thank
all that,
you.
of course, linked in the video description for people to check out her website and all of those things that she just mentioned. So, definitely take a moment, expand that description, take a look what's there. And there's a free consultation, so you can just check it out and see maybe this could be right for me. I love that people don't have to go through this alone anymore and all the guesswork. And sometimes you think you're on the right track, but you understandably that doubt starts creeping in from all different places, and just having someone to bounce things off of and get some reassurance, or maybe ask you some questions to help you see things or explore things in a different way and suggest some new ways of going about it. That would have been invaluable for me on my journey, and I know would have saved me years. But anyways, yes, always so excited to meet people like yourself who are doing this work, because I know we have millions of people who need it. So appreciate you. And I'll link your first interview here. So for people who didn't see it, it's a really good one. Also, a lot of great insights from her journey and just about recovery as well. So I hope you'll take a moment. You can just click play, and Alicia and I will be waiting. She'll be there with her soothing voice to greet you in the next one. Thank you so much for being here. This was amazing. I loved every minute of it. So insightful. I appreciate you and all that you do and everything that you took the time to share with people today. Thank you, Alicia.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It was great. Thank you for all that you do too.
It's absolutely my pleasure.